relativists would argue that they have their beliefs and, they committed this act and they justified it themselves, but we hold our own beliefs and we must defend those. And we must defend ourselves against, intruding beliefs.
Really?
You can still maintain a relative philosophy.
Well, I never said you can't be a moral relativist and go out and hire gunmen to support your relative position. But what I'm arguing is, if you're going to be a consistent thinker, as a moral relativist, you have to acknowledge that what those terrorists did at the World Trade Center was not absolutely evil. It was just relatively evil from your perspective. And then the difficult question becomes, why do you want to lay your perspective on somebody else?
To put an end to acts like they committed.
Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most intense philosophical debates around moral relativism versus moral absolutism. To explore this, we're going to react to a thought-provoking video of Cliffe Knechtel challenging a group of college students about their stance on moral relativism. The conversation tackles some really tough issues like terrorism, murder, and personal beliefs, so stick around as we break down what's really going on in this debate and how it affects the way we view the world. By the end of this video, I think you'll be questioning not just what you believe, but why you believe it.
Keep them from committing more of them?
Yeah, but if you accept relativism, you understand that reality is simply something you create in your own head.
And reality is, we have created on our head that we must defend ourselves. And every culture has to defend its own beliefs. Whether or not they believe, they can do whatever they want over there, but they come messing up our stuff, and we got to do something about it.
Yeah, but if you're true to your moral relativism, you have to acknowledge that it doesn't matter ultimately whether you bomb buildings or feed starving people. It's of no ultimate significance. It's just a personal bias, a personal prejudice.
There's a difference between a bias and a prejudice and killing 5,000 people. That's part of what we believe as a country, is that that kind of stuff is wrong. And we have to do something about it. We're not going to go stop any Islamic countries if they don't come messing with our stuff, because, as a relativist, I can say that, cool, they can hold their beliefs, whether they go to heaven, hell, whatnot, that's their thing. But yeah, when they come over here.
Yeah, but sir, if you're consistent with your relativism, you have to acknowledge that what a person chooses is right for them.
It was right for them.
But I'm standing here saying, that it wasn't right for them. It was wrong for them to slaughter innocent life.
Yeah, that's why we're retaliating. Well, that's what we believe, that it was wrong.
Obviously, they believed that what they were doing was right because they thought that it was worth dying for. Because those pilots, the hijackers, died for their cause. They damn sure thought that they were doing the right thing. But I don't think they did the right thing, and I don't think anybody in this country thinks they did the right thing. That's what moral relativism is. Yes, they thought it was right, but we don't.
Yeah, but moral relativism says there is no right and there is no wrong.
There's right
it's
for
all
you.
Relative.
There's right for you.
Cliffe starts by asking a pretty simple but powerful question. If everything is relative, how can you say that what the terrorists did on 9/11 was wrong? After all, they believed they were in the right. They thought they were doing something just for a higher cause. And this is the paradox of moral relativism. It's all relative. So if a terrorist believes their actions are justified, then, according to moral relativism, it's not absolutely wrong. It's just wrong from our perspective. Now, Cliffe doesn't let up. He challenges the relativists to think about their position from a place of consistency. If everything is relative, can you actually criticize someone else for their beliefs? Can you say that terrorism is wrong, or even that killing innocent people is evil, without violating your own principles as a relativist? Imagine this. What if you say the terrorists were wrong? How are you different from them? After all, if everything's subjective, doesn't that mean that your version of right and wrong is just a bias, a personal preference? The relativist here is put into a tough spot. How do you justify defending your own worldview while respecting someone else's, especially when that worldview involves things like murder or extreme violence? This is a huge point that Cliffe presses on. Moral relativism might sound tolerant and open-minded, but in practice, it becomes incredibly hard to draw any lines. If your perspective is just as valid as anyone else's, does that mean we're all left without a clear moral compass?
Fine. I can say this is right for me, but if you disagree with me, I'm not right and you're not wrong. It's all relative. I mean,
But
just
if I
think
come
about your
over and
position.
kill you or attack you, you're still gonna have to retaliate to continue living,
Yeah, but you're in a real bind as a moral relativist. Because as a moral relativist, you have to think about your position on abortion, homosexuality, battered wives, abused children.
Oh my God.
Think about your position, and then realize that the opposite of whatever position you hold is equally valid.
It sounds like you're suggesting that we take personal responsibility instead of listening to what other people think is right? What a novel concept! Why, this is fabulous! If we all think for ourselves, maybe we'll finally reach our own truth.
Let me say it one more time to see if I can communicate a little more clearly to you.
I think
If you're a moral relativist, think about your position. Obviously, I don't know your position on abortion, homosexuality, battered wives, abused children. Now, if you're a moral relativist, you have to acknowledge that the opposite of whatever it is you hold on those hot emotional topics is equally valid. I refuse to do that. I insist that the terrorist bombings on the World Trade Center are not equally valid as my position, which is, do not murder innocent life. But if you're a moral relativist, and if you're going to be intellectually consistent and responsible for your own belief in moral relativism, you have to acknowledge that the terrorists are just as right as you are, because right and wrong are just relative. But you see, you moral relativists don't do that. Instead, you moral relativists go running around saying, oh no, that was absolutely wrong. No, it wasn't absolutely wrong. If you're a moral relativist, there is no such thing as absolute wrong. There's relative wrong, but it's all a crapshoot. It's all relative. I'm just holding you to be consistent and responsible for your belief system the same way you hold me to be consistent and responsible with my belief system. That's all I'm doing.
Let's think about this for a moment. Moral relativism can seem like it's promoting peace by encouraging people to respect each other's beliefs. But when it's pushed to its extreme, it can leave us paralyzed in the face of evil. Take, for instance, the 9/11 bombings. If we're truly relativists, then we could argue that it's not morally wrong. It's just wrong from our point of view. And that's a dangerous path to walk down. If we say that these terrorists were right in their own worldview, then what's to stop us from condoning any act of violence or cruelty based on someone's personal beliefs? What happens when one group's truth is a direct threat to the safety and well-being of others? This is the real danger of moral relativism. It can make us too passive. Sure, we don't have to impose our beliefs on others, but when the actions of others harm us, do we just stand by and let them do it? That's what's at stake here. Cliffe's point is simple. If we want a society where we can live together peacefully, there has to be a moral standard we all agree on, something beyond just our subjective opinions. As the debate continues, Cliffe gets into some heavy-hitting examples: abortion, homosexuality, child abuse, and violence. These issues stir deep emotions, and for good reason. But the question Cliffe poses is critical. If you're a moral relativist, how do you reconcile your views on these sensitive topics? If your morality is subjective, then the opposing side's views are just as valid, right? And if that's true, how do we deal with things like the Matthew Shepard murder or the oppression of women in certain parts of the world? These are situations where we might say, that's wrong, but if we follow relativism, we can't really say that, can we? We're left in an ethical quagmire. Here's where the debate shifts. If we accept relativism, we must acknowledge that, in the eyes of the perpetrator, they believe what they're doing is right. It's a hard pill to swallow. But as Cliffe argues, we have to confront these contradictions head-on. If we truly believe in a moral system, then we cannot allow cultural relativism to excuse harmful behavior simply because someone else believes it's justified. Cliffe then brings up the most profound point: our intuition. All of us, deep down, feel that certain things are just wrong, regardless of what the person committing them believes. When you see an innocent person being murdered, when you see a child being abused, your gut says it's wrong. But moral relativism tells us to let those actions go unchecked because the people committing them believe they are justified. That's a tough contradiction, and it's what Cliffe's asking us to wrestle with. Can we live in a world where there are no moral absolutes? It's easy to think that relativism promotes tolerance and understanding. But, as Cliffe wisely points out, we have to draw a line somewhere. There are certain behaviors that cross boundaries: murder, rape, terrorism, and other atrocities, and these things should be universally recognized as wrong.
And you know very well you can't do it. You know very well that you don't say, oh, Matthew Shepard was murdered because he was homosexual. Well, it's all relative. That's quite all right if you want to go out and bash gays, that's cool. You don't do that. Instead, when you're confronted by the slaughter of a Matthew Shepard, you say, hey, guess what, guys? That's wrong. That's really, really wrong. You don't kick back saying, oh, well, what are we having for dinner tonight? You can't live out your moral relativism. Why? Because God has wired you in such a way that you have a conscience and you got a rational mind, which doesn't allow you to say, oh, yeah, go out and bash gays, that's cool. Because your conscience says, no, it's not cool. It's really wrong, isn't it?
Moral relativism doesn't mean being passive. It means accepting what other people believe, but choosing your own actions and choosing what you do about what other people believe.
Fine. As a moral relativist, you can choose your own actions. But what you cannot do is tell somebody else that they're wrong in what they freely choose. Because that's elitist, it's arrogant, it's pathetic. If you hold to your moral relativism, you simply say, I choose to do what I choose to do, you choose to do what you choose to do, the terrorist chooses to do what he chooses to do, those who murder Matthew Shepard choose to do what they choose to do. And it's all relative. One's not right, the other's not wrong, it's all relative. You can't live that out, can you guys? It's impossible.
Beliefs are separate from actions, though. And anybody is free to believe whatever they want. It's when those actions start getting carried out that you have to make a decision about what to do. And if your beliefs turn into actions, my beliefs will have to turn into actions about what I will do. I will not stand by and watch somebody be murdered because I think it's okay for them to believe that they should murder. If they believe that they should murder, fine. If they actually start to, not fine. That's the difference.
Fine, but what you've got to realize is you can't live out your moral relativism. You don't do that. Instead, you make some incredible statements about what's really right and what's really wrong.
So, after all this, here's the million-dollar question. Can moral relativism work in the real world? The truth is, in theory, it sounds appealing. Everyone gets to have their own beliefs, and we all coexist peacefully. But when you look at the practical implications when it's time to stand up for justice or fight against oppression, it becomes clear that moral relativism can't answer the tough questions. If there's no universal truth, then who gets to decide what's right or wrong? Are we just left with conflicting beliefs, all valid in their own right? Or do we need to embrace some form of moral absolutism, a belief that there are universal truths we should all uphold? At the end of the day, Cliffe's argument isn't just about winning a debate. It's about asking us to reflect on our own moral beliefs and consider the consequences of relativism in a world that's far from black and white. So what do you think? Do you believe that morality is relative to each person or culture? Or do you think there are universal truths we must uphold no matter what? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is a discussion worth having. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.